So much for my plan for shooting outside today. Look at this weather. What's up everyone? Welcome to today's vlog. As you guys can see, it is pouring down rain outside, so my plans for shooting an outdoor video are completely out the window, but that is okay. Today's video is going to be my thoughts on if you should attend college or not. A big disclaimer, I don't want to be like making this decision for you by any means. I'm just going to share my personal experience and my thoughts on the issue. Obviously, it is an extremely, personal decision whether you should go, and there's so many different factors involved, so just take all this advice with a grain of salt. I think the first biggest thing to consider when should you go to college or not is, do you know what you want to do? When I was going to college, I thought I knew what I wanted to do. I was planning to go to medical school and become a doctor and go down that route. Clearly that didn't happen, but with that thought in mind, you have to go to college and you have to go to medical school, and there's a defined route, and there's a lot of other professions that are the exact same way. So if you fall into that group of people, then you're more or less required to go to college and go down that route. So your decision's pretty easy, and you can stop watching this video. But for the rest of you, and this really was me at the time, but I just didn't know it, I had no idea what I really wanted to do. I didn't know what career path to take. I just was like, well, maybe being a doctor would be cool and all that type of stuff. So all of you that don't know what you want to do, the big trade-offs are, you go to college and then you get a degree and then you go out and get some type of job. You have to pick your major, and you don't know what that's going to do. We don't know what that's going to be yet because you don't know what you want to do. Or you say, I'm not gonna go to college and I'll go out and get a job in something that doesn't require a degree at the time and work my way up and go about it that way. I don't think either of those options really is too limiting. I think the biggest trade-offs are the time and the money. So obviously, if you go get a job right outside of high school, even if it's at minimum wage, you're probably gonna be able to make more money than if you're a full-time student in college. You're just gonna be able to work more and build up experience that way. You're also not gonna be paying for tuition and all that type of stuff. So there's a big plus there because college is very expensive. If you do go to college, you're gonna incur, well, you hear that thunder? Sorry. If you do go to college, you're gonna have to be incurring all those expenses, all that time, and really trying to figure out. However, you're gonna get a degree, and for all those positions that are entry level that require a degree, you're automatically gonna be able to more or less be eligible for those, which is definitely not to be discounted, because for all those people out there that don't have a degree, they're that much more frustrated because it's look, I have all this experience, but just because it says you need a degree, you can't get it. So that can be very, very frustrating as well. Going to college can really help you figure out what you want to do in some ways, but it also can be very hard because you can't switch majors, 30 times. I mean, you could, but you'd be there forever. You kind of, by your junior year, I would say you really have to start narrowing down, this is what I'm gonna do. You might be able to change it a few times, but besides that, you're kind of stuck. And even when you change it, now you're looking at classwork basically to try to figure out, is this a career that I'm gonna wanna do? And let me tell you, classwork compared to what it is in the real world is so different. So you're not actually getting a feel. For me, I thought finance and economics is what I ended up switching to, was great in the classroom. I thought it was a super interesting topic. I was really gung-ho about going for that major, and that's what I ended up graduating with. But when I got into the real world, I hated every single internship that I got, and I really didn't like the job that I got coming out of college. So just because you like the schoolwork doesn't mean you're gonna like the real job. So you have to consider that part. Whereas if you go out and are mentoring under somebody and have a real job, right outside of high school, you're getting the real world experience of what it is like to be in that career. Now, some careers obviously are much harder to, intern in or to kind of get a job even at the like most baseline level, but you can still probably go shadow people and get a little bit better view. You can do that in college, and I would definitely recommend doing so whichever path you choose. That is probably the best way to figure out what you want to do. Talk to people that are doing it and go do it as quickly as possible. Even if you're not actually doing the job, if you're close, if you're an assistant of somebody that does that job, I think you're gonna get a much better view of what it's like day to day than you will in a classroom. You just can't figure out what it's gonna be like in that scenario. The problem is society expects us to go that way, to say, this is gonna be my major, do the schoolwork that's required, go get your job, and you're gonna like it. But the sad reality is most of us don't know what we want to do. We kind of just pick a college major because we have to, and then we just kind of fall into the career because that was our major. And if you don't like it, tough luck. The one thing that I would say about not going to college is you can always go to college. If you don't go to college for 2 years, 4 years, a year, whatever it is, whatever amount of time period, you can always go back and get that degree and piece of paper that says, you can apply to all these different positions that require that. So don't think just because you're not going when all your friends are going, that doesn't mean that you can never go to college. I think there's, kind of a misconception with that sometimes. But I know when I was trying to go, decide if I was gonna go or not, I think there would have been a stereotype to say, oh, you're not gonna go to college, and what are you gonna do? And they think that you have to have your life all planned out, when in reality, most people that are going to college don't have their life planned out. It's kind of like a deferring thing to just figure out what you're gonna do. And I don't really see a problem with trying to figure out what you're gonna do not attending college. So at the end of the day, I really think it comes down to trying to figure out what you want to do with your life, what you want your career to be. And I think you can find that out just as easily not going to college as you can going to college. Some people definitely need more time to figure that out. But I think a lot of us, including myself, lull ourselves into this false sense of security of saying, oh, well, I'll just figure it out later, or I need time to figure it out. Okay, yes, you need time, but you're not gonna be getting any closer to figuring out what you wanna do just sitting around, not actively pursuing something. And by that, I mean talking to people, doing what you're doing, actually going to do it. If you want to be a photographer, you need to go out and taking pictures, and always having a camera in your hand and just actively pursuing that. Same thing with any other type of career. If you want to be a doctor, you need to try to find the local hospital and see if you can go shadow with the doctor there. Read up on it as much as you can, but also really try to put yourself in that situation and get as much firsthand experience as possible. You can't figure that stuff out just sitting on your couch hanging around with friends and stuff. So you really do have to make sure you don't just say, oh, I'll push that, down the road, sweep it under the rug, and get around to it, because you'll never figure it out. Another way to figure out what you really want to do is to try to narrow down things that you do not want to do. And for me, this was that first big job out of college was, wow, I really don't like this job. I can go ahead and check that off the list and say, this is not for me. And while that process was harder, I mean, you hate to say waste, but I spent 2 to 3 years in college specifically focusing on those majors, and then another 1.5 years after college, working in that field, trying to, really determine if it was for me or not. I probably should have cut my losses, as early as possible in the job, but I'm a very determined person, was I'm gonna stick this out and, make sure it's not for me. But I think for any of you guys, just get out there, start doing things. Action is key, because either you're gonna figure out you really enjoy it and wanna keep doing it, or you hate it and really don't wanna keep doing it and you can move on. Either of those two things is gonna get you much closer to what you really like. And there's gonna be a lot of stuff in between. I don't love it, I don't hate it. You're gonna figure out who you are, what type of stuff you like, what type of stuff you don't like by doing versus just sitting around and taking a passive role, if that makes sense. This question of whether you should go to college is very similar to a question that I faced not that recently, was what do you do, in my case, once you graduate college? And for me, it was you go get a normal job, or you go kind of start your own business. And I went the normal job route, but it kind of just goes to show that even though I went that route, I ended up kind of coming back around, and now, you know, I own my own business with Danielle, and that is so great, but it took me a year and a half to figure that out. I think college, whether you should go or not, is the same type of question in a way. Whether you go to college or not, you can always kind of weave your way around to figure out, you know, where you end up wanting to be, and you'll just end up gravitating towards that position as long as you're actively pursuing things. If I just would have said, you know, this job doesn't seem like, you know, the exact right one for me outside of college, and I was super picky, well, I wouldn't have figured out that job I really hate. And if I wouldn't have decided to quit that job and start my own business, I wouldn't have figured out, wow, this is stuff that I really enjoy. So it's the same type of thing with college. Whether you go or not, you need to make a decision. You need to stick with it up to a certain point, and don't be afraid to change course once things, you know, aren't going exactly how you want to. You need to be determined to a certain extent, but realize when you're being like me and being stubborn and just banging your head against a wall for no good reason. Another thing I think is so overblown is like the scale and magnitude of the consequence of the decision you're gonna make. You know, it really feels like, and I felt the exact same way, like, okay, where I go to school, you know, if I'm gonna go to school, if that's what you're considering, whatever it might be, those feel like the biggest decisions of your entire life, and they might be up to that point. But like I said before, don't let those decisions, like, you know, overblow their magnitude, because you can always change course. Like, everyone says you can't, and I think, this is me at least, I was really scared of what other people were gonna think about, like, the decisions that I was making. You know, oh, that's not as prestigious of a school as so-and-so is going to, and like, you know, you kind of, like, that makes you feel bad sometimes. Or like, if I wasn't gonna go to school, like, I would have been very scared about, like, what are people gonna say? Like, my parents, my friends, like, just people in general. And that gets to like a much broader point of, I really only started feeling like I was becoming a success in life and like my own person by starting to care as little as possible about what people think about you. And that sounds so cliche, like, oh, don't care what people think. And it's like so easy to do sometimes, or easy to say, it's so hard to do. Whether it's vlogging in public, whether it's making a big decision to like quit a safe job and start your own company at a young age, whatever it might be, like, there's lots of people that I do value their opinion and I do care what they think, but if you let that define like the big decisions you make in your life, or any decisions you make in life, guess what? You're living the life they want you to live, not the life you want to live. So I think that has been one of the biggest things I've learned in this last year, and it's been like a lot of struggle to learn that, because I really do care what people think about me, but I've been having to fight with myself and say, look, like, you don't need to care what they're thinking. If you do care, you're not gonna make the decisions that you wanna make. So you have to, you know, tune them all out, put the earmuffs on, and make your own decisions. Put blinders on and do what you know, because you know, inside you really truly know what you should do and what you wanna do. Just do it. I know it's so easy to say, so hard to do, but I promise you, once you start taking those steps, it gets easier and easier and easier to do it. Well, I hope that little bit of advice that I was able to give you guys helped a little bit. I know some of that stuff I really would have wished that I had been able to tell myself back when I was trying to decide if I was gonna go to college or not, and even giving myself that advice just less than a year ago when I was trying to figure out if I should quit my job or not. I think no matter where you are in life, this advice and this stuff, this information really can be helpful to so many different scenarios and big decisions that you're facing. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. Don't forget, if you guys like this video, give it a big thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you guys in tomorrow's vlog. Bye.